So mudakara is very important. So that's an Islamic tradition. Now I want to look at quickly at, and then I'll conclude my remarks. I'll look at from the Western tradition. We have Shakespeare, who was obviously a great master of many, many subjects. It's clear for anybody who's ever read Shakespeare. He was also a great sportsman. He knew a lot about different sports, especially bowling is one of his favorite, traditional English bowling. So like, there's the rub. That's a sporting metaphor there that he's using. So he has advice to Laertes, who was going off to study from his father Polonius. And he says in that, and these few precepts in thy memory. In other words, retain these. I'm going to give you some advice. I want you to retain them. See thou character. Really work on your character, on your akhlaq, your moral well-being. Give thy thoughts no tongue. Don't always have to give your opinion. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. In other words, don't act on thoughts that you haven't fully deliberated. Really think deeply about what you do before you do something, because most of the major mistakes we make in life are from doing things without thinking. And one of the most amazing things about our tradition is what's called istikhara, which is where if you're going to do anything of any serious consideration, you always do istikhara, which is a prayer where you actually pray to God, astakhiruka, right? I ask you to choose for me, right? Astakhiruka, with your knowledge, astaqdiruka biqudratika, and I'm asking you with your ability to, to do that. So that's very important. And then he says, be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. Be familiar with people, but don't go down to that level that very often happens when people become too familiar, which is where they tend to become vulgar, right? Vulgarian is a word you might want to look up, because we have a whole culture now of vulgarians, where people that swear for no reason. One of the signs of the end of time, the Prophet said, you will see obscenity without any reason. Because it used to be people swore when they got angry. Now people just swear, right? Just for the sake of it. And obscenity it's obscene for a reason. Every culture has obscene words. So that's something very important. Don't become vulgar. The friends thou hast and their adoption tried, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel. The Prophet ﷺ said one of the signs of the end of time is, he said, you should count yourself lucky if you have one true friend. And a true friend is gold, right? It's the one that yushattitu shamluhu liyajma'ak. He will do everything. He will basically pull himself apart to pull you together. So that's a true friend. So true friends are rare. And it's a very high maqam in Islam, the maqam of sadaqah. And siddiq in Arabic, which is a true friend, means the one who's truthful. They're not obsequious, or they'll tell you what they really think. But do not dull thy palm with entertainment. You could look at this a few different ways, but one of the meanings is, don't everybody you shake hands with, don't let him become your boon companion. Just because a lot of people just like sitting around with people and just shooting the breeze, and if you find an entertaining person, it becomes a type of enjoyment. So don't dull thy palm with entertainment by just going around looking for people to associate with. And one of the snares of the devil with students is to get them to do everything except study. So you will constantly be distracted. And I feel sorry for students today in that the distractions are much greater than they've ever been for people. So I had the good fortune of studying in some really isolated places, so I know the blessing of pure isolation. And then he says, of each new hatched, do not dull thy palm with entertainment, of each new hatched unfledged comrade. Right? So, beware of entrance to a quarrel, but being in, bear that the opposed may beware of thee. So, don't jidal. Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, literally, he was once in a gathering and they started arguing, and he got up and he shook his rida, like almost like a masseuse shakes their hands out after they massage, just to kind of get that out of their system. He shook his rida and he said, Antum harb. He said, you're war. And he left. And he used to say, Laysa al-jidal min ad-din fi shay. This religion has nothing to do with argumentation. And a man came to him once and said, he was from the Murji'iyah, one of the sects, and he said, Ya Aba Abdillah, ujadiruka. Let me argue with you about this issue. And Imam Malik said, وَإِذَا غَرَبْتَنِي. And if you win the argument, he said, تَتْبَعُنِي, you follow me. He said, وَإِذَا غَرَبْتُكَ. He said, أَتْبَعُكَ. If I win, I'll follow you. And then he said, وَإِذَا جَاءَ ثَالِثٌ وَغَلَبَنَا. What if a third comes and he defeats both of us? He said, نَتْبَعُهُ. He said, we'll follow him. He said, my friend, you're going to be on a new religion every day. And he said, as for me, I know what I know and I know where I got it. And that's what I'm following. So that's tradition. That you don't have to grapple with things in each generation. You have a kind of consistent truth that's been transmitted. You have to still grapple with it because not all of it's absolute. But that's important. Not to get into arguments, get into discussions. But it's very different from argumentation. Give every man thine ear, but few thy voice. This is very good advice for a student. Listen attentively, because this is the time of listening, but don't be so quick to give your opinion about things. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Listen to people's criticisms of you and take them seriously, but don't be too quick to criticize others. Imam Shafi'i was once asked, how did you get such good character? He said, I always listen to my critics. If they made him think about, he's got a point, I talk too much, or I argue too much, or I'm arrogant, then he would work on changing that. And then he said, costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy, rich not gaudy. Wear something that's appropriate to your station. Don't dress like a poor person if you're not poor. And don't be gaudy. For the apparel oft proclaims the man. This is something that modern people have completely dismissed, although in reality their apparel often does declare them. Traditional people always dressed well because they knew what the human being was. It's a very exalted creature. And this is why all traditional clothes have an elevating quality in them. Even peasants dressed beautifully. And they always had good clothes to wear on special occasions. Now we have T-shirts at award ceremonies. This is the type of culture that we're in. So, and just look at any pictures from before the 1960s in any civilization on this planet, and look how people dressed, and look at the way they dress today, because it does declare who they are. Their minds are like that. Their minds are sloucher minds, and so that's reflected in their own state. And then he says, neither a borrower nor a lender be. Good advice. To not give surety is surety, as one of the great Greek wise men said. For loan oft loses both itself and friend. You loan people money and you lose their friendship. This above all, and then finally he concludes, going back to the beginning, see thou character. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not then be false to any man. If you're true to yourself, you'll be true to other people. But if you're false to yourself, you're going to be false to other people. So that's very good advice. So we're blessed to be starting this year. We're excited about this class. It's a small class, but we're expecting big things from the class. And this is the beginning of something. And inshallah, you are sabiqun. and may you be sabiqun in the literal meaning of that, because you are sabiqun just by the mere fact that you're the first doing this, but may you be sabiqun also spiritually, people that outstrip and really work hard. One of the most important things that people have a really difficult time today is being alone. And one of the things that this machine does is it prevents people from ever being alone with themselves now, because you just constantly can be entertained, but you have to learn to be alone. And one of the great scholars, he said, لِقَاءُ النَّاسِ لَيْسَ يُفِيدُ شَيْئًا سِوَى الْهَذَيَانِ مِنْ قِيلًا وَقَالِ. You know, that meeting people really doesn't benefit a lot other than just kind of empty he said, she said words. فَأَقْلًا مِنْ لِقَاءِ النَّاسِ إِلَّا لِأَخْذِ عِلْمًا وَإِصْلَاحِ حَالِ. So don't have a lot of meetings with people except to rectify your state by meeting with people in a better state than you, and to learn, to study. So I really hope you take that advice. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of you tawfiq.